Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today, and I am back. Well, for a lot of you, I've never even gone anywhere, but for me, I was getting some much-needed R&R and catching the Z's. Whew, was that much needed. Feeling good entering the new year. I hope all of you had a wonderful holiday season and a great entry into 2022. And a big thank you to all of you who supported the variety of content we did while I was away. The State of Xbox video, the re-reviews for Fable and Fallout, the Dark Age of Bethesda, one of our biggest projects on the channel. We did a Let's Play video with Kev Do It. Just thank you all so much. I was really happy to see when we stepped away from the news for a couple of weeks that we retained the audience, that you all hung around. That made me so happy. So thank you all so much. With that, we're now refreshed. We're good to go for the new year. And ladies and gentlemen, we're starting things off with a bit of a bang. We got some weird news. I fire open Twitter. I start scrolling through the game sites. I'm like, certainly I didn't miss much on the Xbox front. And honestly, I didn't. But this was the biggest news story of them all. GoldenEye is coming back. So we're going to dive deep into that story. We have a significant exit over at 343 Industries that we're going to talk about. And then for Halo vets, a bit of a sad story to wrap things up. Shout out to the Halo vets. You'll know what I'm talking about at the end. But anyway, with that, if you're new here, consider subscribing. Let's dive into the latest in Xbox news, starting off with GoldenEye 007. So you remember that N64 game? Shout out to N64. Right back there in the middle, we got Pokemon Stadium in there. A lot of people had GoldenEye in there. For me, I was never much of a GoldenEye player. I found my James Bond swag over with like Nightfire on the PS2. What a game. Everything or Nothing. James Bond has a fantastic selection of games. Agent Under Fire is another one. I love those games. But for me, GoldenEye was one that I kind of missed out on while I was busy playing a ton of TMNT Turtles in Time. And so now this is a great chance for people to catch up. What a lot of folks don't know is that at the beginning of last year, there was a pretty significant leak revolving around GoldenEye 007. Apparently in 2008, this game was supposed to be remastered and re-released on the Xbox 360 through the Xbox Live Arcade, where we learned about, say, the likes of State of Decay. I believe Limbo came from there as well. So many awesome games, but there was also a slew of canceled games that never saw the light of day. There was a Star Wars Battlefront-like game that was on there that got canceled, and I remember as someone who's dying for Battlefront to come back, that was torturous for me in particular. But this was also a game that you're seeing on screen right now that never saw the light of day. It had kind of that Halo anniversary feel where you could click a button and go back to the older graphics and then click it again and go to the more modernized ones. It was remastered from the ground up, and right as it started to near completion, it got dropped. Why is that? Well, it's a James Bond game developed by Rare, published on a Nintendo system, and now Microsoft owns Rare. You got MGM involved. So we're talking about a lot of licenses and legal hands in the cookie jar, and that means that it was a tough game to get out. And it looks like now it's finally happening. Whether it's the game we saw just at the beginning of last year or something completely different, we're unsure. My bet is on this being the game that we saw last year, and I'll explain why. So the way this leak occurred was through an achievement list. You go over on trueachievements.com, we can see a full 55 achievements for GoldenEye 007 worth 1,000 gamer score. And the achievements range from completing the dam, completing the facility, runaway, yada, yada, yada. All these different levels that you already know in GoldenEye. The reason this is also noteworthy is because with the leak from last year with the Xbox Live Arcade version, there was a completely different achievement list. So we have that to run with a little bit. But there's also achievement art that you can see on screen right now. And a lot of people were speculating, is it a remake? Is it a remaster? I think the achievement art is a dead giveaway of what it is, which is a remaster. None of this looks particularly remade as we look at the low poly humans and cars. And yeah, it doesn't look all that great, but of course, we're not sizing it up to games nowadays. We're looking at it for what it is back then. There's, of course, the cover art, which is being used as a thumbnail that we'll likely see in storefronts, and Exophage has it listed as an Xbox One game, meaning that this will not be, as I think most of us expected, exclusive to the series consoles. The timing of this is also quite perfect, because James Bond's Twitter account just posted, this year, we celebrate the 60th anniversary of the James Bond series. Watch out for announcements, events, and new content across 2022. The reason that this times out so well is we already know IO Interactive is working on a James Bond game, and so that will likely be shown off this year, and you bet your butts that GoldenEye is going to be one that they try to promote during this year of the 60th anniversary of James Bond. So I'm pretty excited for that. Also, if Xbox is starting to work a little deal here to get James Bond exclusively to their consoles here with GoldenEye, as they own Rare, who developed the game, it would make a lot of sense, even if it was put on Nintendo's console. But I feel like if Nintendo's going to get any version, it'll be through the N64 Classic. But with that said, we have to consider IO Interactive's game. Suddenly, Xbox has a bit of a James Bond identity, huh? Maybe? The spy box? I don't know. But I really thought this was a surprising story, to say the least. And for someone who's missed out on a ton of classics, if you watch Retro Rebound, you'll see just how many I missed out on, because my gaming career really started in earnest with the N64, which I know it's funny, I miss GoldenEye, but really it kicked off big time with the original Xbox. And that's where a lot of stuff I played started to come out. But there were so many games I've clearly missed. This is one of them, so I'm pretty excited to get my hands on this, and I think this is a very unique get for Xbox. Whether or not it's on Game Pass doesn't really, I think, matter. This is probably going to be like a $20 game, nothing crazy, good for fans who are nostalgic. What I'm hoping for, though, is for them to make it where the multiplayer is online. I think that would be awesome to reinvigorate that part of the player base, because so many people have nostalgia for that. It's how I feel, where I brought up Turtles in Time being the game that I played a ton growing up. That was my couch co-op game where my friends always came over, or I'd go over a friend's house. We'd gather around, junk food everywhere, and just replay TMNT. Like so many people would just replay GoldenEye in multiplayer modes. I'm hoping that they can capture that nostalgia and reactivate the multiplayer and get people doing that again, because I think that would be a very big deal. And this is what I'm expecting with 2022. We have so many amazing games already announced, and I'm going to say it a million times this year, so just prepare yourselves. There's so much you don't know about. This is just one of many examples. All right, let's move on to our next news story. This one has to do with 343, who lost their lead narrative designer. So this comes from GameSpot, where they say that Halo Infinite lead narrative designer leaves 343 and joins Riot Games. Aaron Lind, the former lead narrative designer, posted on his Twitter account, "Bittersweet news to report. I'm departing 343 Industries to pursue a new opportunity in 2022. It was a terrifically difficult decision. Halo Infinite will remain one of my proudest achievements of my career for the rest of my life. I'm so grateful to have been a part of it. I want to thank my dear colleagues at 343 for making the best game I have ever worked on, our incredible voice cast for elevating our work in every single line delivery, and our players for joining us on this wild-ass journey. You made 2021 an incredibly special year for me. I get squidgy talking about real shit on this stupid website, so I'll leave it at that for now. But I can't underscore enough how grateful I am and always will be. See you next mission." Then the GameStop report picks up. As lead narrative designer, Lind was in charge of a small team of writers handling all open-world narrative content in the game, according to his LinkedIn page. This amounted to more than 15,000 lines of enemy and marine chatter, more than 100 audio logs, and ambient dialogue. I wanted to shout this out because I already saw a couple websites and the way they framed it, doom and glooming it on the outlook from the headline itself. And so I just want to make it clear, nothing's really negative here. This is okay. This is a happy departure. You know, completed the game, went okay, on to the next journey. Here we go. So I don't think this speaks to any toxicity within 343. We've already heard about some of their development troubles and how they really turned the game around with Joe Staten. So this is a significant loss in one way that I do want to highlight, which is one of the best things I think about Halo Infinite that has been talked about a lot is the banter, the back and forth between the aliens and the brutes, what the grunts say when you're hearing them on the propaganda towers. Of course, the Marines, when you're, for example, going through the TAC map for too long, it doesn't pause the game. So you'll hear a Marine go like, "Hey, Chief, your suit lock up," or something like that. I thought that type of detail was really cool. Plus the audio logs, which are super necessary for building this world, even if it's not my favorite form of storytelling. I think that there's a clear purpose for it, especially in a game like Halo Infinite, which is trying to connect a lot of narrative threads that some they're attempting to wash away, like Halo 5, and some they're trying to bring back. And so it's a pretty interesting situation where I feel like the game's in a good spot where it could be picked up by anyone and then led to the next chapter, which we've already seen. I don't want to spoil it in case no one's played it, but we've seen the trademarks online for it and what that may indicate. So we'll talk about that later on. But for now, the last bit of news I wanted to talk about, like I said, this is for my Halo vets, so prepare yourself. It's a bit sad, but not all doom and gloom here, as I may be marketing it up to be. So, this comes from the Halo support website. Xbox 360 only online services will be reduced or disabled for Halo 360 games on January 13th, 2022. On January 13, 2022, Xbox 360 game servers for Halo games will be turned off, sunsetting the service. This means that while the games can still be played, online services such as challenges and file share will no longer be available. The 360 versions of the following games will be affected, being Reach, Halo 4, 3, 3 ODST, Combat Evolved Anniversary, Spartan Assault, and Halo Wars. This only affects the 360 versions of the games. Games in the Halo Master Chief Collection will not be impacted. The Halo titles available within Master Chief Collection have been rebuilt and remastered to leverage different modernized services. And then they provide a chart here, which you can see on screen, about what will be supported, what won't be supported when it comes to the sunsetting of services. So across the board, matchmaking will be turned off outside of Halo Wars 1 and Spartan Assault. That's got a big community, doesn't it? But I just wanted to highlight it, give a salute to Halo on the 360. Yeah, it's still around. We can still play it on Master Chief Collection. It's on PC. It's on Xbox One. You can play it on Series X. That's all well and dandy, but for a lot of us, the 360 era of Halo was something truly special. Want to give a special shout out, of course, to Halo 3, which I'm imagining a lot of you in the comments will resonate with. Halo 3, for me, when I was in 7th and 8th grade, so I was like 12, 13 around this time, was the bonding game. It was the game that brought people together. It was the game you made friends through. It was a social platform of its own. It was so important. Everyone had Halo. It was always assumed you had Halo 3. And so it made it where sharing gamer tags, in my case, in class and making friends, was a lot more possible for someone who was like, well, antisocial. Funny now I'm on camera and shit, but you get my point. So just wanted to shout out Halo 3. Of course, it's still there. It's still around. We can still play it. But the 360 era is being put to rest. And so with that, we move on to the Xbox One, the Series consoles, PC versions, where it will hang out for the foreseeable future. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that's this week's news for Xbox. We'll see how things develop throughout the rest of the week and how quickly things ramp up in 2021. 2022, right? It's not 2021. Whew. Gotta unwire the brain, right? It reminds me of when I was in class and you'd be writing the dates and you put, like, in this case, it'd be 2021. It's 2022. Erase it. Anyway, you get what I'm trying to say here. Things are gonna ramp up, I imagine, pretty quickly, so be prepared for more news. With that, let me know what you're thinking of all this in the comments down below. Do fire away. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.